Hi everybody. Hello. I'm going to do Gurdjieff's writings today on how we have to part with the ways of our old selves. Because when we do this kind of work, and not just Gurdjieff work, I've noticed it in other kinds of work, like whether it's Steiner or Buddhism or whatever it is that tickles your fancy, there isn't a letting go of the old way of yourself because you're developing yourself and you suddenly see new ways of how you want to be the real you, the genuine you, the one that sits right with your conscience, I suppose, is what I'm saying. And Gurdjieff wrote quite a bit about all this. But I'm actually going to start with a C.S. Knott quote because he says, which I really like, he who walks in the way of God is distinguished by 5 things. He is free from anxiety about his daily needs. Everything he does is done for the glory of God. He struggles constantly with his weaknesses and negative feelings. He strives to remember himself always and in everything. He remembers that he is mortal and may die at any moment. And that is true. When you start doing this kind of work and developing yourself, and as you're changing and building this new version of yourself, these are the things that become quite important. You have a stronger connection with the divine source. And I really find that to do this kind of work, you need to have a belief. Lots of beliefs out there. Doesn't matter what faith you're into. Okay, Gurdjieff sometimes calls it esoteric Christianity, what he's selling, but it can be esoteric Buddhism, esoteric, Judaism, esoteric, whatever, paganism. It's looking at the deeper inner knowledge and connection of yourself with the divine, not an exoteric version of itself, where you're just, you've got a little bit of a belief, but you carry on your life in this way. Instead, the you that you become is the one that's going to work with the divine because you want to do that now. And also, as he says, we're struggling constantly with our weaknesses and our negative feelings because it isn't suddenly everything's fixed and you can go about. You will be changed and start seeing things differently and working differently with yourself, but things will come up that will tempt and tease you. The devil still puts traps in our ways. And we're doing this for the glory of God. As I've said in past shows, we're trying to become part of the harmonious workings of the whole universe. Caught up, is that the right words? We don't want to be caught up. We're caught up in a rat race. We want to be part of it because we want to do it. So I'm going to do a quote from Views from the Real World, page 80. So Gurdjieff's talking. If you go no further than to see that you and all men are machines, you will simply become cynical. You will have to make a choice to decide to seek either to become completely mechanical or completely conscious. This is the pattern of the ways of which all mystical teachings speak. You alone can decide what it is that you wish to do. Search into your heart for what you most desire, and if you are capable of doing it, you will know what to do. And you've been looking at this, you've been thinking about this, that's why you've been coming to this work, to Gurdjieff's writings, or whatever you're into. Maybe there's other things you're finding this through as well. As people have been putting on the comments in the YouTube, I do like to hear what other people find the same kind of writings or the same kind of teachings in other places. I don't know everything. I'm not a master. So I need guidance as well. And I like to hear about other ways of reading or looking at things, or perhaps a different video or someone else telling it in another way, because sometimes hearing it from not a different point of view, but another way they bring it across sometimes makes a bit more sense than, or make something come together that you've been struggling with. And usually these things come along when you need them, I find, when you're on this path, when you're doing the work. It's like I've said before, I've got a book angel. When I need a book, that angel puts that book in my way for me. Suddenly it appears, or I find a cheap version somewhere that I can pay for. And it's the same with the work. You're going along, you get stuck on something, you've got to ponder for a while. There are moments when you sit back and nothing's happening, but that's when everything's digesting within you. But then suddenly something will come along that gets you up onto the next stage or helps you with something that you perhaps you wasn't understanding before. So I'm going to do some all and everything quotes. So all and everything, page 569. The sacred cosmic substances required for the coating of the highest being body, soul, can be assimilated, transformed, and coated in them exclusively from the process of Isa to Niscian contemplation. I probably said that wrong. Actualized in the common presence by the cognized intention on the part of all their spiritualized independent parts. And then page 1209. To be a man, one must first of all, with an indefatigable persistence and an unquenchable impulse of desire, issuing from all the separate independent parts constituting one's entire common presence, a desire issuing simultaneously from thought, feeling, and organic instinct, work on an all-round knowledge of oneself, at the same time struggling unceasingly with one's subjective weaknesses, and then afterwards taking one's stand upon the results thus obtained by one's consciousness alone, concerning the defects in one's established subjectivity, as well as the elucidated means for the possibility of combating them, strive for their eradication without mercy towards oneself. Yep, we have to be quite hard on ourselves and realize when we fall down and pick ourselves back up. Okay, we look back on our lives and we all have regrets and we all have moments when we go, but we deal with that. And through doing this work, we learn how to assimilate that into our lives to help us with our development. You know, Gurdjieff talks about using that suffering to help us. Don't let it hinder us. We want it to work with us so that we can go forwards and make ourselves genuine I, real I. And he actually says in Meetings with Remarkable Men, he talks about Professor Skridlov, one of the main characters, and what he had to do. So from page 226 of Meetings with Remarkable Men, Professor Skridlov reached a turning point in his general inner psyche in the sense that from then on, it began to be activated not only by his thoughts, but also by his feelings and his instinct. These latter even began to predominate or to take the initiative. And it's bringing all them centers together. And while we're working on ourselves, they do begin to cooperate together and work together. Sometimes one will try and take over the other, usually in the early days. But as we begin to become aware of that and realize when that's happening, we have more, but we can stop it happening. And I've said before about all our eyes, and then we bring the deputy steward in to try and gather all the eyes together so that then genuine eye can come in when all the other eyes are under control. Well, that deputy steward will try and bring it so that we're using all our centers, or if we're using one center too much, it will be like, got to use it this way as well. And Gurdjieff discusses this actually in Views from the Real World, page 152. So he's talking about his institute, the Harmonious Institute for the Development of Man. This institute can help one to be able to be a Christian. Now he's going to use Christian here, but as I said earlier, it can be whatever faith you're doing, Baha, whatever. This institute can help one to be able to be a Christian only if a man has this desire. And a man will have this desire only if he has a place where constant desire is present. Before being able, one must wish. Thus, there are 3 periods: to wish, to be able, and to be. A man who is able to do all that is demanded of a Christian, both with his mind and his essence, is called a Christian without quotation marks. Quotation marks. A man who in his mind wishes to do all that is demanded of a Christian, but can do so only with his mind and not with his essence, is called pre-Christian. And a man who can do nothing, even with his mind, is called a non-Christian. And you've probably read that, you know, Gurdjieff talks a lot about man without quotation marks. Without quotation marks is the real I, the real man. We're in quotation marks when we're not fully in tune with ourselves and developed. So going on with all and everything, page 1219. The chief difficulty in the way of liberation from their whole entire slavery consists in this, that it is necessary, with an intention issuing from one's own initiative and persistence, and sustained by one's own efforts, one's own will, not by another, to obtain the eradication from one's presence both of the already fixed consequences of certain properties of the organ Kundabuffer, as well as the predisposition to these consequences which might again rise. And that Kundabuffer's there to, or was there, it's not there anymore, but we used to read the Gurdjieff work to realize what that's all about. But anyway, the Kundabuffer was here to distract us from our work and developing ourselves, and to just give us pleasure and make us just want joy and entertainment and, you know, the luxuries of life, the good things. And then when it was removed, we were so blinded by it that we still thought that way, or humanity still thought that way, and still does now, all these centuries later or millennia later. So we're trying to stop the effects of the Kundabuffer in us and instead become genuine, real, and not see things topsy-turvy like the Kundabuffer used to make people see it. Turn the page over. But Gurdjieff offers us help. Obviously, he's offering us help through the books. He's not here today for us to talk to. There are teachers, I'm sure, out there, and there are groups that you can go and join. You know, as the lockdowns end, we'll be able to go and be with groups again, or find groups, or, you know, the right people will come for you. So he says there's help. And this is from Life is Real, page 109. The indispensable condition, which is first of all required from a man for his still possible arrival on a new path, namely the path of evolutionary movement, is to have at least some data for the acquisition of his own I, which is what I was saying about just now. We're trying to get our real I, genuine I, to come out, to take control, to be us, to be the real I. And we want to do the evolutionary movement. We want to be going back up to the divine. The involutionary is coming down from the divine to us. Are we listening to it? Most people aren't in the world. You know, the majority are asleep. But if we can be aware of it and then use it in us, transmute that energy, and then send it back out, so that we're working with the divine to help with his sorrows and everything else the divine needs. His endlessness, as Gurdjieff calls it. Right, so this is Views from the Real World. This is a bit of a long quote from page, this is 148 in my book, but I've had people telling me they've got different versions, so the pages don't always go. Anyway, page 148 on mine. As long as a man does not separate himself from himself, he can achieve nothing, and no one can help him. To govern oneself is a very difficult thing, a problem for the future. But this thing, to separate oneself from oneself, does not require much strength. It only needs the serious desire of a grown-up man. Our mind, our thinking, has nothing in common with us, with our essence, no connection, no dependence. Our mind lives by itself, and our essence lives by itself. We're here to separate oneself from oneself. Means that the mind should stand apart from the essence. Our weak essence can change at any moment, for it is dependent on many influences, on food, on our surroundings, on time, on the weather, and on a multitude of other causes. But the mind depends on very few influences, and so with a little effort, it can be kept in the desired direction. Every weak man can give the desired direction to his mind, but he has no power over his essence. Great power is required to give direction to essence and keep essence to it. Body and essence are the same devil. So even though I was saying just now, in trying to harmonize all our centers, if we can use the intellect, the intelligence center, to learn the knowledge and then start using it with emotions, and start then going on with the body as well, or in whatever way suits you, with that starts coming wisdom, and then hopefully the essence can spring up out from wherever it's hidden, normally down in the subconscious, I believe is what Gurdjieff's trying to say to us. We're bringing that essence out, but that essence needs developing. It's still like a little child. So that's why we have to work on ourselves and do all the exercises and read the books. And I know people have been saying books can shut doors, but they also open doors. And with the Gurdjieff work, I always ask people to read the books because they're the core of all this teaching. Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, Meetings with Remarkable Men, Life is Real Only Then When I Am, and of course the Herald of Coming Good, because that's what Gurdjieff was bringing, the Herald of Coming Good, what's good for us. He's heralding it for us to hear and to go forth and do. You know, like the angels used to herald with their trumpets the coming of the Christ or coming of God. Right, I was going to do some In Search of the Miraculous. Lovely Ouspensky. So page 242 of In Search of the Miraculous. In order to approach this system seriously, people must be disappointed first of all in themselves, their powers, and secondly in all the old ways. And, you know, what happened in the past happened in the past. How we used to be was how we used to be. But we can change. I know they say leopards can't change their spots. We're not leopards. We're humans able to develop ourselves. And I normally think that people that say leopards can't change their spots is because they don't want to change. Well, we do. So, you know, maybe we could be leopards with stripes. Or we'll turn our spots into stripes. Turn our spots into gold coats. Coat ourselves with a nice golden body. So in Search of the Miraculous, page 244. This system is for those who have already sought and who have burned themselves. You know, you've already had that temptation of this is the right way to do it, or something different's going on in this world other than how most people live their lives. You know, you've had that little push into the direction of esoteric work or occult work, or, you know, some kind of deeper understanding of what religion really is, what's behind the religions, what's the real essence in the religious teachings, and you want to go further. You've been a little bit burnt. As Gurdjieff says, you know, better to be eaten burnt by the sun than eaten raw by the moon. We want to be burnt by all this grand teaching. So the beginning of the way depends upon the capacity for distinguishing between the two kinds of influences. So we want to have the influence from the divine. We want to go forth with that kind of influence and not be influenced by all these people that just say, no, none of this matters. You know, there is no God, or there is no need to develop yourself. Just live your life. The rationalistic way of living, which is sadly what's going on now and what is wrong with this world. All these people that want to poo-poo a connection with the divine, or poo-poo having any kind of spiritual encounters, all these people that want scientific or rationalistic answers, well, these people are the ones that are going to kill off humanity, I think, because there are people that feel there's more. Many people like to be told there's nothing more. You know, they might have had some kind of experience and it's worried them a bit or frightened them, and it's, you know, not sure where to go with it, and someone comes along and says, oh no, it's just your mind playing tricks on you, go and see a psychiatrist. You know, that's their excuse for getting out of doing anything. People that really want to go forward will continue and feel the need to. Right, so In Search of the Miraculous, page 218, more about parting of the ways. A man may be born, but in order to be born, he must first die. And in order to die, he must first awake. And in things like the New Testament, let's take, for example, and other religions, but I'm going to do the New Testament because I sort of know a bit more about that than deeply about others. The Christ talks a lot about dying and being reborn. And I'm sure many of you know about this, and you hear about how people have been reborn into Christianity. It is a death from your old life into what you're coming into, of the new you, of that's going forward with the search for a connection to God and to do God's work, the divine's work. Carrying on anyway from page 218, Search the Miraculous. When a man awakes, he can die. When he dies, he can be born. Being born relates to the beginning of a new growth of essence, of the formation of individuality, of the appearance of one indivisible I. To die, to free himself from 1,000 petty attachments, identifications with things, sufferings, stupidity, useless eyes. To awaken, to realize one's own nothingness, complete and absolute mechanicalness, complete and absolute helplessness. We want to stop that mechanicalness and start living properly. I've got a really itchy nose. Maybe a surprise is coming. We want to go forward of awake, reborn, the new version of yourself that's going to do what you were sent here to do. So in Search for the Miraculous, page 282. When self-deceit is destroyed and a man begins to see the difference between the mechanical and the conscious in himself, there begins a struggle for the realization of consciousness in life and for the subordination of the mechanical to the conscious. Right. There begins a struggle for the realization of consciousness in life and for the subordination of the mechanical to the conscious. For this purpose, a man begins with endeavors to set a definite decision, coming from conscious motives, against mechanical processes proceeding according to the laws of duality. The creation of a permanent third principle is for man the transformation of the duality into the Trinity. And on page 360, Ouspensky writes, it is useless to think of the possibility of or impossibility of big or distant achievements. A man must value what he gets today without thinking of what he gets tomorrow. The first step in becoming an adult is to realize that things are done to us, not by us. So we want to start doing things for ourselves, obviously. We want to develop ourselves so that we're no longer being automatons, we're no longer being mechanical. We want to be real, genuine people. And I'm just going to read Knott's quote, the way he talks about Oraj. So Oraj has said this to Knott. To every pupil, the time comes when he must leave his teacher and go into life and work out, digest what he's acquired. Then he can return to his teacher, if necessary, on another level. Part of Gurdjieff's teaching lay just in this, to show a man indirectly how to stand on his own feet. And Gurdjieff did used to say all this. He used to give exercises to his pupils, work with them for so long, for such and such a time, and then he would be like, go on, off you go. And some of them didn't want to leave him. But you have to do this ourselves. This work, Gurdjieff's work, the system is for us to live in this everyday life that's going on at the moment, to live in the modern world, not to go and hide in a monastery or a cave or wherever, though that'd be, I would love to do that. But the system is to help us to live in this life. So I hope you found your parting of the ways and are working on it. I really do hope you finding your essence coming up and through you and becoming the real you. And I hope that you are living and working in the glory of the divine. So thank you all. Until next time.